So the Mar-A-Lago jury selection will be a MAGA country minefield. The jury that will determine Donald Trump's guilt in the classified documents case is poised to come from the reddest swath of purple South Florida. The federal judge overseeing Donald Trump's classified documents trial is taking steps that could stock the jury box with the former president's supporters. U.S. District Judge Eileen M. Cannon has set the upcoming trial to open on August 14th at her tiny satellite courthouse in the northern reaches of her district, which stretches from the tropical Florida Keys to the citrus groves halfway up the state. That sounds delightful.
This is wonderful.
That decision means Trump's jurors are set to be drawn from the most brightly red corner of a vast court district, plucked from a community that leans heavily Republican, instead of the highly populous and more Democratic urban areas further south. Several Miami lawyers, some of whom asked to remain anonymous because they have active cases before Cannon, noted that Trump's chances to win what otherwise appears to be an insurmountable criminal case increase the further north he goes. It's solidly MAGA country. All 5 counties where the jurors are coming from voted heavily in favor of Trump in the 2020 election. He ultimately lost. Okay, let's just talk a bit about this, Remi, with jury selection. It seems not fair in that case. How did it work out this way? And was this a slight manipulation maybe by Trump's camp to get this sort of result?
Maybe. I mean, they're not supposed to have any control over which judge is going to hear the case. I think the headline is sort of strengthened by the fact that this judge was appointed by President Trump. So it's an easy link to say, some sort of conspiracy theory. But really, it would have to be serious corruption in the federal district court down there in order for Trump's lawyers to have any control over which judge gets the case. And then, to be fair, this judge sits in that area. That's where her courthouse is. It's not like she's going to some unusual location.
Sure.
And because of the number of people that they expect to come, they might actually move this case somewhere else because her courthouse is so small. Her courtroom is so small.
Right.
So we still don't really know that this article is actually accurate.
Also, there has to be various degrees. I don't even know what the specific policies are with regards to picking a jury that has to be vaguely unaware of the case as far as the media attention is concerned. And I go back to like the OJ trial.
Yeah.
Just obviously the difficulty in finding any jury of your peers that was not already aware of a fucking white Bronco and a couple severed heads. I mean, it's when it's obvious that everyone knows who Donald Trump is. He was our president. Like, how does that work?
Right. So that's a great question. And I think most people like you, Bill, think like you want jurors who don't know anything about the case.
Right.
And in probably 99.8% of all cases that go to a jury trial, no one's ever heard of the case. They're not in the news. They're not, involving the president for sure. But that's actually not the rule, right? We don't need jurors who don't know anything about the case. We need jurors who can set aside whatever they know or whatever their personal biases or prejudice might be and listen to what happens in the courtroom. What is the judge telling them that is evidence in the case? What is the judge telling them is the law that governs their decision-making in the case? And the whole jury selection process is supposed to help the lawyers determine whether these are individuals who can follow those rules, who can do those things. So whether they know anything about the case or not is not really the litmus test. It's whether they can sort of put those things they think they know about the case to the side and listen to what's actually happening in the courtroom.
Now,
Possible.
Remi, do lawyers ever consider astrology? Because truly, I am a Libra. I am the scales. I oftentimes find it hard to make a decision because I think one thing and then I'm presented with other information and I think, well, that's a good point. But then I'm presented with other information, so I can go back and forth. I can really see both sides. So
Then I would say, as a criminal defense lawyer, I want you on my jury.
There you go.
I want you on my jury.
By the way,
I've never considered it before, but Libras now may be better for me.
You're welcome.
if you Google Remi with any of the high-powered cases she's done, she usually wins. You can never tell because they're all usually kind of depressing.
Yeah.
And like a lot of bad things happen. So even when the jury's announced, I will look and see stills of you in the news, and your expression's always still the same, even if you've just won again.
It should be. You're not gonna do a yeehaw.
Well, as a Leo, I totally would be. I don't even care if I've gotten a client off that I know murdered a dude, but I got him off. I'd be like this. Flexing with the cameras.
But Remi, speaking of you being a criminal defense lawyer, another layer of this Mar-A-Lago trial here, a criminal defense lawyer noted that his job is typically made more difficult because local jurors tend to side with cops, who frequently make up the only witness in a state criminal case. The upcoming Trump trial presents a twist. Conservatives who normally tout their loyalty to police will be faced with a choice, whether to believe federal law enforcement or the former president they adore.
That's actually, Joe, I think that's really one of the most interesting parts of this case.
Thank you, dailybeast.com.
I think what we've seen in the last maybe decade is that there is a general mistrust of the FBI. I mean, we've seen people not being prosecuted for crimes that are in high-level positions in the Bureau. And I think that perhaps more of former President Trump's supporters sort of believe that there is corruption at the highest level in the FBI, and they're willing to say the same thing about their local police department. So it's unusual, but I think that that's an accurate point. I think more of Trump's supporters would be less likely to trust the federal law officials from the FBI than they would local law enforcement.